Welcome to another episode of Denver After Dark with your favorite former Congressman, J6 Senior Technical Advisor, and former military intelligence officer. Glad to be with you, and we have a very exciting show. I call it SCOTUS and Jeff Bezos in chains, and all of this is actually linked to one person. We can talk about Donald Trump, but no, we're going to talk about Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, and two specific comments that we can actually talk about. And this little episode, which I hope I can do between 6 and 10 minutes, very quick for all of you, could be a little controversial because I'm going to talk about Supreme Court justices possibly being arrested and Jeff Bezos being put on notice by Carolyn Leavitt, our favorite, prominently displayed cross wearing 27-year-old White House press secretary that could very well have the intelligence of a massive box of hammers. One of my favorite military sayings: have the IQ of a box of hammers. Um, so I was on the January 6th committee, as you know, and talking about this incredible comment or lack of a comment from Carolyn Leavitt in the last day or two, where she refused to rule out that Supreme Court justices could be arrested based on a question about Hannah Dugan, the judge arrested just recently for defying administrative warrant by ICE, was very interesting. But I want to ask if the left and some of the center wanted Clarence Thomas arrested or at least investigated in a warrant based operation based on January 6th and his wife, Jenny Thomas. And how would I know? Because the one that is talking to you now is the one who deciphered the Meadows text messages. It was my team, and we are the ones who ferreted out the Jenny Thomas text messages. That's right. That's me. And I hope you go to the Washington Post, the Bob Woodward and Bob Costa article, I believe, about the Jenny Thomas text messages. I hope you read them because it was us that found them, and it was me that wanted a warrant to look at her telephones and her emails. And if they led to Clarence Thomas, I wanted to investigate Clarence Thomas too. That's right. And that didn't happen, which was a huge bone of contention between me and the committee. Why? Because Jenny Thomas had access to all three branches of government. We know in the text messages that she had access to Jared Kushner directly. She was coordinating with congressional offices, and she sleeps with Clarence Thomas. I mean, that's who she spoons with. So that's pretty much direct access on many levels. So when Karen Levitt says that, I wonder, does the left agree with that with Clarence Thomas, or even some people in the center right? Should we go about trying to arrest Supreme Court justices? And with me wanting a warrant based operation on the Thomases specifically, would I have been for the arrest of Clarence Thomas? I want to say probably not. Removal, yes. Impeachment, yes. But if he was coordinating, or if his one vote and the 8-1 vote to deny evidence be presented in this case, and you should go look at that decision, if he colluded with the president and those behind spreading the lies, which I think there should have been wire fraud at the least, and raising money on the January 6th election, QAnon-based conspiracy theories, well, wouldn't that have been interesting? But he should have been impeached and removed. So where are we at with the SCOTUS now? Anybody should have said we are not going to arrest Supreme Court justices. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Because my God, there's some real hubris, but there's also some real corruption going on with Clarence Thomas specifically, knowing about who funds his trips and his fun time, which is, I think, in the number of over 4 million, but you need to go validate and source that, but I bet I'm close. And then you have to talk about Jeff Bezos. He got a little sideways, didn't he? So I can just pull this up right now. Let's do that on this deep dive into facts. So Carolyn Leavitt, she goes after Jeff Bezos. And these individuals who are so ridiculous, they slam Amazon. Jeff Bezos, your favorite belly rolling, well, maybe not as bad as Zuckerberg or Musk or those types, but a belly rolling Trump sycophant who just wanted to be in good graces of the White House. Now the White House and Carolyn Leavitt, again, our favorite 27-year-old box of hammers, says it's a hostile and political act by listing the tariff surcharge on the Amazon website. Oh my goodness. So we have two things happening here. We have this implied threat that nobody is safe from arrest if they go against the Trump agenda, and we have this direct threat against Jeff Bezos, direct threat that you've gone against the master, Donald Trump. And Carolyn Levitt's the perfect person to do it. I mean, she's a puppet. I mean, literally a puppet. But she is the spokesperson for Trump specifically in the White House. What is she saying to Jeff Bezos? What is her threat? Her threat is take that down. A hostile and political act. The tariffs are a hostile and political act. Donald Trump is a hostile and political act. Anybody who supports him, it's a hostile and political act. But the glue here is somebody who's willing to say or do anything. And here's my thing about this. We can't be left or right when it comes to stupidity, truth, or facts. But we are sometimes. Do we arrest Supreme Court justices? Is there right or wrong specifically? Of course there is. And can we make a compelling case that when you have the lawless, like the Trump administration, talking about the rule of law, it's hypocritical, at least. Mostly it's an insult to anybody's intelligence with an above moron IQ. But where do you stand on arresting Supreme Court justices if it's January 6th? Facts based. And what if we find that Judge Alito is doing something wrong? But the thing about this administration is they're not going to arrest conservative judges. They would only arrest judges considered to be on the left. It's a very interesting conundrum because I was for investigating Clarence Thomas all the way down the line because with Jenny Thomas, they're culpable. Come on. He should have been at least looked at for impeachment going down the line based on the January 6th brouhaha and the criminal acts there and the coup-like movements. When you're talking about today, though, I would humbly submit that we shouldn't arrest Supreme Court justices. Even if it's Clarence Thomas types, we should remove them. When it comes to direct threats against corporations based on bad policy, that is chilling indeed. Because right now, Trump is setting up this system of checks where only he can actually check the box when it comes to people getting tariff relief and things like that, where he's the only one who decides. We're in a bad space, ladies and gentlemen. But at this point, we have to realize that all that stupidity funneled from the Trump house is coming from Carolyn Levitt. But she is stating the facts of the case. And the question is, what do we do about it? Because it is going to get worse before it gets worse. But we need to be there on the flip and to make sure that morals, integrity, truth, and facts maybe can rise again. Is it? I don't know. Thank you. I hope this wasn't too controversial. And I hope you join me again for another evening of Denver After Dark.